Hello and welcome. We are back with more Southern horrors and other writings. Before we hop into the reading portion here, I do want to go ahead and remind you I have two ways to donate to the channel if you are so inclined. I have a Patreon account, which is a month-to-month monthly donation system. And then I also have a Ko-fi account, which can do much the same, but also allows you to donate single one-time payments. Now, if you are in financial trouble, please do not donate. I'd rather you take care of what you need to take care of. It's tough enough out there for everybody with morons in charge. So yeah. Um if you can afford it and you want to, thank you. I do appreciate it. It's me, myself, and I who do this. So I'm all on my own. So yeah. Um, but um, I don't make any commercials as a personal choice, and I'm certainly not getting paid by any of the social media sites. So yeah. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into the video itself here. Today we'll be reading a few small pieces because we've got some that are just not all that long, but we're starting off with mob brutality. The brutality of the mob was further shown by the unspeakable cruelty with which it beat, shot, and stabbed to death an unoffending colored man, name unknown, who happened to be walking on the street with no thought that he would be set upon and killed simply because he was a colored man. The Times Democrat's description of the outrage is as follows. While the fight between the Negro desperado and the citizens was in progress yesterday afternoon at Clio and Saratoga streets, another tragedy was being enacted downtown in the French Quarter, but it was a very one-sided affair. The object of the white man's wrath was, of course, a Negro. But unlike Charles, he showed no fight, but tried to escape from the furious mob which was pursuing him, and which finally put an end to his existence in a most cruel manner. The Negro, whom no one seemed to know, at any rate, no one could be found in the vicinity of the killing who could tell who he was walking along the levee, as near as could be learned, when he was attacked by a number of white longshoremen or screwmen. For what reason, if there is any reason other than the fact that he was a Negro, could not be learned, and immediately they pounced upon him, and he broke ground and started on a desperate run for his life. The hunted Negro started off the levee toward the French vegetable market, changed his course out of the sidewalk toward Gallatin Street. The angry yelling mob was close on his heels and increasing steadily as each block was traversed. At Gallatin Street, he turned up that thoroughfare, doubled back into North Peters Street, and ran into the rear of number 1216 of that street, which is occupied by Chris Reuter as a commission store and residence. He rushed frantically through the place and out into the gallery, onto the gallery of the Gallatin Street side. From the gallery, he jumped to the street and fell on his back on the sidewalk. springing to his feet as soon as possible with a leaden hail fired by those angry mob whistling about him, he turned to the merciless pursuers in an appealing way and, throwing up one hand, told them not to shoot any more, that they could take him as he was. But the hail of lead continued, and the unfortunate Negro finally dropped to the sidewalk mortally wounded. The mob then rushed upon him, still continuing the fusillade, and upon reaching his body, a number of Italians who had joined the howling mob reached down and stabbed him in the back and buttock with big knives. Others fired shots into the head until his teeth were shot out, 3 shots having been fired into his mouth. There were bullet wounds all over his body. Others who witnessed the affair declared that the man was fired as he was running up the stairs leading to the living apartments above the store, and that after jumping to the sidewalk and being knocked down by a bullet, he jumped up and ran across the street, then ran back and tried to get back to the commission store. The Italians, it is said, were all drunk and had been shooting firecrackers. Tiring of this, they began shooting at Negroes, and when the unfortunate man who was killed ran by, they joined the chase. No one was arrested for the shooting, and the neighborhood having been deserted by the police, who were sent up to the place where Charles was fighting so desperately, no one could or would give the names of any of those who had participated in the chase and killing, nor could anyone be found who knew that who the Negro was. The patrol wagon was called and the terribly mutilated body sent to the morgue and the coroner notified. The murdered Negro was copper-colored, about 5 feet 11 inches in height and about 35 years of age, and was dressed in blue overalls and a brown slouch hat. At 10:30 o'clock, the vicinity of the French Market was very quiet. Squads of special officers were patrolling the neighborhood, and they did not seem to be any prospects of disorder. During the entire time, the mob held the city in its hands and went about holding up streetcars and searching them, taking from them colored men to assault, shoot, and kill, chasing colored men from the public square, through the alleys, and into houses of anybody who would take them in, breaking into the homes of defenseless colored men and women and beating aged and decrepit men and women to death. The police and the legally constituted authorities showed plainly where their sympathies were, for in no case reported through the daily newspapers does there appear the arrest, trial, and conviction of one of the mob for any of the brutalities which occurred. The ringleaders of the mob were at no time disguised. Men were chased, beaten, and killed by white brutes who boasted of their crimes, and the murderers still walk the streets of New Orleans, well known and absolutely exempt from prosecution. Not only were they hands of the mob, even now that the law and order is supposed to resume control, these men, well known, are not now nor ever will be called to account for the unspeakable brutalities of that terrible week. On the other hand, the colored men who were beaten by the police and dragged into the station for purposes of intimidation were quickly called up before the courts and fined or sent to jail upon the statement of the police. Instances of Louisiana justice as it is dispensed in New Orleans here quoted from the Times Democrat of July 26th. Justice dealt out to folks who talk too much. All the Negroes and whites who were arrested in the vicinity of Tuesday's tragedy had a hard time before Recorder Hughes yesterday. Lee Jackson was the first prisoner, and the evidence established that he made his way to the vicinity of the crime and told his Negro friends that he thought a good many more policemen ought to be killed. Jackson said he was drunk when he made the remark. He was fined $25 for 30 days. John Kennedy was found wandering about the street Tuesday night with an open razor in his hand, and he was given $25 or 30 days. Edward McCarthy, a white man who arrived only 4 days since from New York, went to the scene of the excitement at the corner of 3rd and Rampart Streets and told the Negroes that they were as good as any white man. This remark was made by McCarthy, as another white man said the Negroes should be lynched. McCarthy told the Recorder that he considered a Negro as good as a white man in any body and soul. He was fined $25 or 30 days. James Martin, Simon Montague, Eddie McCall, Alex Washington, and Henry Turner were up for failing to move on. Martin proved that he was at the scene to assist the police and was discharged. Montague, being a cripple, was also released, but the others were fined $25 or 30 days each. Eddie Williams, for refusing to move on, was given $25 or 30 days. Matilda Gamble was arrested by the police for saying that 2 officers were killed and it was a pity that they were not shot, that more were not shot. She was given $25 or 30 days. Insolent blacks. Recorder Hughes received Negroes in the first recorder's office yesterday morning in a way that they will remember for a long time, and all of them were before the magistrate for having caused trouble through incendiary remarks concerning the death of Captain Day and Patrolman Lamb. Lee Jackson was before the Recorder and was fined $25 or 30 days. He was lippy around where the trouble happened Tuesday morning, and some white men punched him good and hard, and the police took him. Then the Recorder gave him a dose, and now he is in the parish prison. John Kennedy was another black who got into trouble. He said that the shooting of the police by Charles was a good thing, and for this he was pounded. Patrolman Lorenzo got him and saved him from being lynched, for the black had an open razor. He was fined $25 or 30 days. Edward McCarthy, a white man mixed up with the crowd in an expression of sympathy, nearly cost him his head. For some whites about started for him, administering licks and blows with fists and umbrellas. The Recorder fined him $25 or 30 days. He is from New York. When James Martin, a white man, and Simon Montague, Eddie Call, Henry Turner, and Alex Washington were before the magistrate for having failed to move on when the police ordered them from the square where the bluecoats were Tuesday, waiting in the hope of catching Charles. All save Martin and Montague were fined. Eddie Williams, a little Negro who was extremely fresh with the police, was fined $10 or 10 days. Shocking brutality. The whole city was at the mercy of the mob, and the display of the brutality was a disgrace to civilization. One instance is described in the Picayune as follows. A smaller party detached itself from the mob at Washington and Rampart Streets and started down the latter thoroughfare. One of the foremost spied a Negro, and immediately there was a rush for the unfortunate black man, and the kicks they had torn from fences on the line of march. The young outlaws attacked the black and clubbed him unmercifully, acting more like demons than human beings. After being severely beaten over the head, the Negro started to run with the whole gang at his heels. Several revolvers were brought into play and pumped their lead into the refugee. The Negro made rapid progress and took refuge behind the blinds of a little college in Rampart Street, but he had been seen, and the mob hauled him from his hiding place and again commenced beating him. There were more this time, some 20 or 30, all armed with sticks and heavy clubs, and under their incessant blows the Negro could not last long. He begged for mercy, and his cries were most pitiful, but a mob has no heart, and his cries were only answered with more blows. For God's sake, boss, I ain't done nothing. Don't kill me. I swear I ain't done nothing. The white brutes turned a deaf ear to the pitying cries of the black wretch and the drubbing continued. The cries subsided into moans, and soon the black swooned away into unconsciousness. Still not content with their heartless work, they pulled the Negro out and kicked him into the gutter, and for the time those who had beaten the black seemed satisfied and left him groaning in the gutter, but others came up, and regretting that they had not had a hand in the affair, they determined to evidence their bravery to their fellows and beat the man while he was in the gutter, hurling rocks and stones at his black form. One thoughtless white brute, worse even than the black slayer of the police officers, thought to make himself a hero in the eyes of his fellows, and fired his revolver repeatedly into the helpless wretch. It was dark, and the fellow probably aimed carelessly. After firing 3 or 4 shots, he also left without knowing what extent of injury he inflicted on the black wretch, who was left lying in the gutter. Murder on the levee. One part of the Crown made a raid on the Tenderloin district, hoping to find some belated Negro for a sacrifice. They were urged on by white prostitutes who applauded their murderous mission, says an account. The red light district was all excitement. Women, that is, the white women, were out on the stoops and peeping over the galleries and through their windows and doors, shouting to the crowd to go on with their work and kill Negroes for them. Our best wishes, boys, they encouraged, and the mob answered with shouts. And whenever a Negro house was sighted, a bombardment was started at the doors and windows. No colored men were found in the streets until the mob reached Custom House Place and Villiers Street. Here a victim was found and brutally put to death. The Picayune description is as follows. Some stragglers had to run a Negro into a car at the corner of Bienville and Vierre streets. He was seeking refuge in the conveyance, and he believed that the car would not be stopped and could speed along. But the mob determined to stop the car and ordered the motorman to halt. He put on his brake. Some white men were in the car. "Get out, fellows!" shouted several of the mob. "All whites fall out!" And the second cry and the poor Negro understood what it meant, that he should stay in the car. He wanted to save his life. The poor fellow crawled under the seats, but someone in the crowd saw him and yelled that he was hiding. 2 or 3 men climbed through the windows, and with their pistols others jumped over the motorman's board, and dozens tumbled into the rear of the car. Big, strong hands got the Negro by the shirt. He was dragged out of the conveyance and was pushed to the street. Some fellow ran up and struck him with a club. The blow was heavy, but it did not fell him, and the Negro ran toward Canal Street, stealing along the wall of the Tulane Medical Building. 50 men ran after him, caught the poor fellow, and hurried him back into the crowd. Fists were aimed at him, and clubs went upon his shoulders, and finally the black plunged into the gutter. A gun was fired, and the Negro, who had just gotten to his feet, dropped again. He tried to get up, but a volley was sent after him, and in a little while, he was dead. The crowd looked on the terrible work, and when the lights of the houses of ill fame began to light up again, the women peeped out the blinds. The motorman was given the order to go on. The gang clanged, and the conveyance sped out of the way. The gong clanged and the conveyance sped out of the way. For half an hour the crowd had their place at the corner, and the patrol wagon came, and the body was picked up and hurried to the morgue. Coroner Richard held an autopsy of the body of the Negro who was forced out of the car 98 out of the Vierre line and shot down. He was found that he was wounded 4 times, and most serious wound being that which struck him in the right side, passing through the lungs and causing hemorrhages which brought about death. Nobody tried to identify the poor fellow, and his name is unknown. But we'll go ahead and end the reading there. Yeah, got quite a few done. We're like 22 pages left in the book to read, so we're getting through it. But yeah, men of color who had done nothing at all, chased down, beaten, killed, just to satisfy blood thirst. There was no reparations for crimes, no trying to bring justice. It was out and out murder, gang, violent murder. The racist lynching mobs were the original violent gangs. And again, we've talked about this. All it is a matter of few things. Melanin, maybe there's a couple of differences here and there. We know genetically sickle cell disease is more apt in African Americans. But yeah, you're all still the same fucking beings, human beings. It's like y'all don't fucking understand this fucking fact though. Or you don't fucking care because you're hate mongers. Which is closer to the fucking truth. You're shitbag fucks who are too stupid for your own fucking good. And because you're too stupid, you go out and attack others who look different. Fuck you, motherfuckers. But, as always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources, and it can't be tinfoil hat wearing sources or a bunch of anecdotes slapped together to try to make a source. Like, we know a man who was on his farm and saw space aliens land down and said they had met with President John F. Kennedy one sunny day and played Parcheesi. No, you didn't fucking do that. You didn't hear that shit. You're making that shit up, you dumbass. That's not a source. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.